isn't entertained. I think he is speaking very clearly about, how much bandwidth we have economically and otherwise to fight these wars, and where should we be deploying our military capabilities for the threats that we really need to go after. Vladimir Putin brought up a great point, and this guy's a bloody murder killer and what's going on in Ukraine, but he justified his Ukrainian invasion based upon what we did in Iraq. And now he sees this incursion as another justification, potentially. And what are we telling the world at large, our adversaries like China, that they can then maybe go into Taiwan because they're justified? So I think it's very important. I think within this 2 weeks, I hope that Israel stands down. I hope we find a path toward an agreement along the lines of what we have with the JCPOA under Obama, under the 5 member nations of the Security Council. Let's put that deal together. I don't care that Trump crashed it or not. I think he needs to get that back in play. And I think there has to be the guardrails. And there has to be, and I don't think the Iranian regime wants to fall.
The JCPOA didn't address one really important structural part of the overall picture, which is Iran's use of proxies. It intentionally left that out, yes, because they couldn't get agreement. But any deal that we deal with that deals with nuclear stuff should entail the proxies as well.
Well, that's why I think, yeah, negotiate that in there. I mean, look, I want the region safe. And I know this is a very hotbed issue for a lot of people in the room. I live in Los Angeles, have many Iranian friends. I have talked to the sons of generals who served under the Shah. And I've asked them point blank, what the hell happened over there? And one guy told me point blank that the Shah could have taken out the Ayatollah. He had a general willing to intercept the planes coming back from Europe where the Ayatollah was being housed. And he said he would die an execution death to do that for the state of Iran. But the Shah did not want to create a martyr in the Ayatollah. And we saw the rest of history what has happened. I don't know how factual all this is, but every Iranian I've talked to who's lived over there, who has some military connection, has supported those claims. So my point with this is the Iranian people here in Los Angeles, they want regime change. They want a peaceful Iran. They want to go back to the legacy of Cyrus and the inclusion of all religions, and where the Jewish faith prospered some 3,000 years ago. So, to continue to bomb and to continue to fight and to continue is just, I don't know how we get out of this, Gary. And with regard to Iranians, the 9/11 we just talked about, the blowback from bin Laden and from the Afghanistan war, it's just never going to end. It's never going to end. And I think we have to start by fixing the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, France, they were going to have a meeting in the UN regarding the two-state solution, and this breaks out, right? So I think that ultimately, if we can fix the Middle East, I think we're going to have a much safer planet. And it starts by getting this Iranian checked on their nuclear capabilities. Let's not throw their country into turmoil. Let's not create some sort of faction within the faction that's going to be more reactionary. We've got neighboring Pakistan. We saw what they did to destabilize our efforts with the Taliban, and they were a nuclear actor. So, these are very difficult situations here, Gary. That to Trump and his national security advisors and Tulsi Gabbard, this guy's got to figure out who he has running the show, because he picks Tulsi Gabbard when all the Democrats wouldn't vote for her, and there was a segment of Republicans vote for her either. He picks her, and then he says she's wrong about the intelligence, and she oversees and she's the head of 17, 18 national security agencies in this country. She has the facts, Garrett. She has the evidence. Otherwise, what it is it all bullshit? We saw how Trump told his FBI with Putin that there was no interference in the Russian elections, and he sided with Putin. So what is this guy doing, Gary? I mean, what are we doing here? You talk about the left and the right. Well, he's got it. He's been handed everything he's ever wanted, and yet he still can't seem to message properly.
the message properly, but if you're talking about like restraint and use of military assets, Trump is merely the symptom of the problem. And this is the thing that
he's the head of state.
No, hold on. You don't do this so much, but I know a lot of other people on the Democratic side do. And it's Donald Trump's the king. He's the dictator. He's the source of all of the United States' problems. The only reason the executive has so much imperial power is because every president has accrued yet more power than the previous president. And here's the issue. That's nonpartisan. That doesn't get the Republicans to be able to point at the Democrats and say, well, you're more powerful than we are. It doesn't get the Democrats to be able to point at the Republicans and say, but you're the king. You're the dictator. Because when you truly have to get to where we are, it is the need of Congress in both parties to reassert their prerogatives and do this, and not do it on a partisan basis as Chris Coons and Chuck Schumer did. They did it on a partisan basis, but they were absolutely and completely fine with President Biden, with a mere executive order, ordering a strike on the Houthis using bunker buster bombs, using B-2 Spirit bombers that cost $2 billion a piece. And he didn't see any need to go to Congress. And here's the problem. Whichever party is in power, for political reasons, points the thumb back at the other party. And it doesn't do any good, because the truth is the executive simply gets more powerful. If the criticism was the executive is too powerful, we need to take his rights down. We need to take the power of the presidency down a notch. I would be with that. When the Democrats had all the levers of power, they didn't see any need to shrink down any of the powers of the executive, thus giving Trump a platform and a precedent to claim his use of modern executive authority.
Yeah, but we're talking.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got to move on.
Yeah.
Because it's 29 after the hour, and the other folks on the stage would appreciate it if we move on.
No way. Sounds good, Gary. All right.
Okay, Michaela.
Yeah, I have a meeting in 1 minute, but I was an organizer for the Nuclear Freeze campaign back in the 80s, 1980, and I think it's time that, I know that Trump is interested in disarmament, and I think it's time that maybe this will trigger the world to start working in that area. But I really, when Israel started this, they knew that they'd need the U.S. to provide to the bunker busters for Fordo, and so I don't like that. I don't like that, and I think that Trump waiting gives time for the people of Iran to do something now. They've been trying for years. This is their time. So I hope and pray we have a miracle like when the Soviet Union fell. It fell, boom, like that, with no warning, without violence. I'm praying for something like that again. I gotta go.
Thank you, Michaela. Saman. Saman. Anson.
To the question of the room, no, Israel should not stand down by any stretch of the imagination. They should keep maximum pressure campaign until this thing runs its course. The MAGA rift over Iran, okay. There are people that on the right that don't want to, for the United States to be involved in any way. So to speak, people like Bannon's not in there, but he's still feeding the fire. You've got people still feeding the fire. You've got people like that trying to undercut each other within the administration. You want to see how that worked? Read 2 books. Read H.R. McMaster's book, which I referenced a couple of days ago, and I'm reading Jared Kushner's book now about the infighting and how all that worked during the first Trump term.